the green economy. Now, if we talk of the green economy as being the Green New Deal, and rolling out a range of ecological and green environmental initiatives to stimulate the economy as we transition from a fossil fuel based energy system to a more renewables based. So if you take those definitions, and then what's the relationship? I mean, from the perspective of my presentation, which was on ecology within the urban environment, specifically about trees, then during my presentation, I give a section over to something called the CAVAT system, which was developed by an esteemed arboriculturalist called Chris Neelan. And Chris developed the CAVAT system, which is a value system for valuing or giving value, amenity value in monetary terms to our street trees. So previous to this, it was a very difficult case to argue the value of a street tree. And so the CAVAT system puts a monetary value to that. So that's the direct link, I think, specifically between a green economy and sustainable development. And by giving these trees a monetary value, it makes local authorities look at them in a completely different light. They're now looking at them, you know, some of these big mature trees can have a street value in English sterling of, you know, £50,000. And therefore the value that they add to the amenity value is immeasurable. And once they're taken away, of course, we can't replace them, not in our lifetime. So I think this is a really important part of our strategy, is emphasising to the local authority the monetary and the amenity value of trees, and of course all of the benefits that they bring to urban environments. And for me, I think as we move into increasing global warming and more severe weather events, the trees are going to become more important than ever before in reducing ambient air temperatures, reducing the energy load of buildings. So they have significant value. I just, this is what the talk is all about, is to try and encourage local authorities and the executives and councillors running those authorities to look at trees in an entirely different light. So I hope that goes some way to answering the question.
Yes, thank you so much, Richard. Moving on, we have a question for Sohan. Architect Sohan, can you enlighten us on some parameters of passive solar house and its ecosystem with the electric grid and the environment?
Yeah, thank you for the question. This is a very good question. And as you have seen in my slideshow, I showed one. This is a very simple concept and very old concept, right? When you have a house that is, you know, especially in colder temperatures, if you invite the sun during the winter time, so the way you design it is obviously with the roof overhang and having enough windows so that you invite the sun. You don't need as much heating or active solar energy because you are already getting the heat from the existing sunlight. And in the summer, the exact opposite, where you keep the sun away. So when the sun is high up in the air and you have a roof overhang that prohibits the sun rays from coming inside, the heat from coming inside, you need less AC. That means you need less active solar. That means you need less energy, you know, to operate that building, and you'll still get a cooler temperature in the home in the summer and warmer temperature in the home in the winter. So that's pretty much it. Thank you. Good question.
Thank you so much, Architect Sohan. We have another question for Richard again.
Yes, far away.
Hello. This question: how do we use the iTree calculators, and can it be used in all countries? Can you please explain any more applications of the iTree system? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Another great question. Now, the iTree calculation tool was developed in the United States, and it's a fairly complex system. Now, we as an organisation, during my presentation, I present through the medium of Once Upon a Tree, the charity that we established last year, and we worked with specialist arboriculturalists. These are qualified experts in trees and arboriculture, and they understand the specifics, range and depth, the management of trees, the diseases, the species, the appropriate species to plant within given situations and environments. And so we're not we don't present ourselves as tree experts, but we come from an urban planning and urban design perspective. So the iTree calculation is a methodology that runs through a software system, and our specialist arboriculturalists did 2 iTree calculations for our 2 principal areas. And how it works is basically measuring the tree canopy cover of a given area, and it takes from a national statistical data bank the annual CO2 emissions of that given area. And what it does is provides this calculation of the amount of tree canopy cover and that tree canopy population, or that tree population's ability to sequester CO2 from the atmosphere, and then gives a coefficient of the amount of CO2 that's being produced by that region of where the iTree calculation is taken, and then the direct coefficient of the amount of carbon that tree population can sequester. And what it gives you is, again, it gives you a monetary value to the total population of trees in a given area. And during my presentation, I do give an example of the iTree calculation, but also a synopsis, an infographic of a particular region within the UK. I think it might be Wolverhampton, if my memory serves me correctly. And it just, that infographics just gives you it takes quite complex calculus and gives you the end figures and presents that in a very kind of user-friendly format in terms of an infographic. So so the iTree calculation is quite specialist, the tool, the software, and we used professional arboriculturalists. So I think it would be applicable to other countries and towns and cities across the world, but I think it would also be dependent on statistical data or national statistical data on the carbon emissions of that given region. So I think it is possible to use it. It's an American system. We're using it in the UK. I don't see any reason apart from that access to the national statistical data on carbon emissions for a given region. We have that in the UK. If you have access to that information, then I'm sure it's possible.
Thank you so much, Richard sir. The next question, are you guys able to hear me? Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, very much so, yeah.
So next question we have for you, Dr. Gyo.
Yep.
The participant is asking if you could please explain if there would be any changes in architecture if we have more severe pandemics on a much faster rate, or for instance, if the world declassified bioweapon pandemics, could it be a every year scenario?
Well, okay, there are two questions there. One is there going to be a change in architecture? That is obvious, and we should not wait for the pandemics because it's going to be too late, yeah? So there should be a change in architecture. We need to be proactive, yeah? So I believe there are going to be changes in the way we think about cities, how we design cities, and how we look at, say, for instance, open spaces, how they could have multiple purposes, how they could be converted into logistics facilities in terms of pandemics or similar disasters. We're also going to look at, they're going to be studies actually, who's going to inform this in terms of seeing how the pandemic spread in cities, to study how did it spread in cities, like in New York, how did it spread? How did the design of the cities in terms of population density aided or was for or against the spread of the pandemic? So this is going to inform us moving forward. For instance, in design things like hospitals, the hospital wards, how might this be designed so that a hospital room could be easily and very quickly changed into an intensive care unit if a patient suddenly becomes very ill. So we're going to have a lot of, proactive measures in airports. You have a lot of pinch points, a lot of big crowds. How might this be designed slightly differently to eliminate the pinch points and so on? So this is what is going to be happening. In terms of how quickly this might happen, it depends on the political will. We talk of climate change and reducing CO2 emission. How quickly it's going to be happen? That depends on the political will. Yes. So that's a question as how long is a piece of string. Secondly, about declassification of biological weapon. Yeah, I can't answer that question. Again, that is a political question. But I think that will help very much if that would help very much if we possibly have a treaty to sort of ban these sort of weapons.
Okay. Thank you, sir. There was another question for you, which was saying, if we know that the fundamental change is going to happen in the process of thinking, but how long do you think the whole implementation process would take?
The implementation process is ongoing. It will be an ongoing process. I don't think it's going to have an end. It's going to have a start, which is now, but constantly we're going to be having more challenges, and constantly we're going to devise more strategies to respond to these challenges. What I can see straight away is going to happen. There is going to be more called CMC. This is computer-mediated communication, where you like what we have now. So there's going to be less need for travel. So that will be saving on CO2 emissions associated with travel, in addition to Richard's point. And also, there's also in design briefs, there'll probably be less need for office spaces because a lot of people will be working from home, and there'll be a lot of hot desking. So no one is going to have a permanent desk. If you need to come in, you come in. They're going to maybe like say 10 desks in an office. You have 20, 30 staff. So if you come in, you sit anywhere, and other people work from home. So you only come in on a need basis, and most communication will be computer mediated. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Louis. Next, we have a question for Professor Ravi. I think he just went offline. Professor Ravi, can you hear me? Your video we cannot see your video.
Can we just move on to the next question?
We'll move on to the next question is for architect Sohan. Just 1 second. Yes, Sohan. So, is the future of renewable energy in jeopardy cause of the sudden decline in fuel prices globally?
Yeah, that's a very timely question. Obviously, as you have seen, the price of oil has dropped significantly in the last few days because of oversupply and under demand. People are mostly staying home. First thing is you have to understand that oil the use of oil in electricity is very minuscule. In transportation is huge. It's pretty much all of it is oil, but in electricity, most of it still comes from coal. Then the next is natural gas. Then the next is now it's going to be in renewables in US, which includes solar and wind. There is still a lot of nuclear. There is some hydro. So firstly, right now the cheapest form of electricity in a lot of areas, like places like Iowa in US, Minnesota, and a few other places, wind is the cheapest. In California, Arizona, New Mexico, there are a few places that solar is the cheapest. So first thing that's going to happen, and that is already happening, is we are replacing a lot of coal, and there's still a lot more to do to replace coal. And no one can just shift from coal to oil all of a sudden. It doesn't happen that way. What it's going to happen is, well, transportation, it will probably affect the electric vehicle industry a little bit, because people will probably be a little more reluctant to buy electric vehicles because now gas is cheaper. That obviously reduces the acceleration of the adoption of EV a little bit. But if you see long term, the price of oil has always gone up and down and up and down and up and down, and it will go up again in the future, right? So it's just a matter of time when people realize that these lower prices are not sustainable. And if you think about the fuel for electric vehicles or for solar is always free. Like once you have the infrastructure set up, the fuel is coming from the sun. So how can you beat something that is free, right? So the bottom line is that we'll probably see a little bit of effect in the electric vehicle industry, not in the electricity industry, because we'll keep charging on with solar and wind and other renewables because they are already cheaper than coal and few other resources. But we'll see a little bit of effect in the electric vehicle industry, but that'll be temporary and it'll pick back up again. So that's my answer.
Okay, thank you, Sohan.
Yeah.
Next up, we have a question for Professor Richard. Are you able to hear me, sir? Your audio is mute. Okay.
Yeah.
What is the percentage of canopy cover for a moderate climate? Where should I get this information?
Yes, the canopy cover for a moderate climate. We in the UK we have a government department called the Forestry Commission that oversees the rural and forestry in the UK, and there's a similar organisation within Europe that measures the tree canopy cover of countries. But the Forestry Commission specifically gives information and data on our towns and cities around the UK. So my advice would be to go to your Forestry Commission equivalent in your home country, and they should have an analysis. It may be that your local municipality, your local government may have this data. The data should be residing somewhere. It's just a question of either going to your local government, regional government, or a national government organisation that is overseeing the tree canopy cover of the districts, the cities and the towns within a given country. So I can only talk of how we do it in the UK, but I should imagine that there will be equivalents in your host country, wherever that may be. Okay.
Yes, thank you, Richard. Next, we have a question for Dr. Lewis. Can a rise in pandemic and a rise in work from home culture lead to more 3D printed architecture, or maybe more 3D printed construction related activities?
Yes, we're already moving in that direction anyway, for a number of reasons. There's the increase in CMCs, as computer-mediated communication, like we have here, Zoom and several other platforms. And also there is already a move in the direction of digital procurement as BIM, the BIM technology, which is about the procurement management of digital and sharing of digital information. So with the pandemics, it's also kind of moving in the same direction, where all these things are design is being done and using the common source of truth, where you have the design hosted in the common data environment, and then you have all the consultants being able to access that particular design from a common data environment, rather than having individual consultants working on individual designs, and you have slightly different versions that create a lot of confusion when it comes to when you come to site. So with or without the pandemic, anyway, we're moving that direction where we have more collaborative design, which is underpinned by a digital process of production, management, and sharing of information.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Lewis. Meanwhile, I'm trying to reach Professor Ravindra in the background. I think there's some problem with his connectivity.
Yeah, he needs to probably sign out and sign back in. She needs to sign out and sign back in. Yeah. I think also whilst we wait, I could, if you want me to talk a little bit about the subject, I could do whilst we wait, or if you want to move on, that's okay.
No, I think we should wait for a while for him. Let me see if he comes back. Okay, so we have a question which was posted for Professor Ravindra, but all of you are open to answer it if you would like. The pandemic has proven to be a brighter positive side, but is it possible to maintain these positive changes even after the lockdown is lifted?
Yeah, we hope so.
Yes, I would like to think so. I mean, just for experience of a company here, I'm not going to mention the company because they may not want me to do that in the UK here. What happened is that they occupy a very prestigious office in central London, and they from the look of things, they felt they would be unable to afford the rents if business is not coming in. So what they did is run up to the lockdown, quickly left the office, packed their things out, a much cheaper office outside London, and they have been operating from this office very successfully using computer media communications, the internet, and so on, and that's slashed their rental bills by nearly 80%, and this worked very, very successfully, and I'm sure a lot of companies have responded this particular way. So it's going to be very unlikely if you could save 80% from your rent of your operational overhead costs to go back to the situation after the pandemic. That's not going to happen. Yes, yeah. So where I work as well, we've got a big new faculty, a big new building, £100 million. School of Architecture and the Built Environment, and there is a proposal to do hot desking, so we can't accommodate all the staff in the offices available. So the hot desking is a situation where you come to work and you sit on the desk available. No one has a permanent desk, and if you come to work and there's no desk, you go back home and work from home. Yeah, if you're not teaching, you work from. So the university has been thinking of how to go around this, but we've been working from home now very, very successfully. So it's most unlikely the university is going to be prepared to spend more money for something that works very well as it is anyway. And I'm sure that goes to a lot of companies all over the world.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I'd add to that as well. I totally concur with that, and I think we're creatures of habits. And you know, and I think we've in my experience, we've all adapted very quickly. And I think what's unique about this situation is that it's global. So it kind of synthesizes with the global economy in a way that if this was a pandemic that was isolated to a single country or a single region, it wouldn't have had quite the same impact. But whether we're talking with family or colleagues in the Americas or Australasia or Asia or the Middle East, everybody's in the same situation. And I think we have kind of adopted this method very, very quickly. And from my experience, just working with online tutorials, it's working well. You know, staff meetings, and And I've always pondered the question of why do we spend billions of pounds on a piece of transport infrastructure to transport people from one region into a city centre, then they go into the elevator up to the 50th floor in £1 billion glass and steel skyscraper to work for 5, maybe 6 productive hours, then come down in the elevator, get back on the transport and go back home. To me, it just seems such an inefficient way of working. And where I live in southeast England, on north of the Thames, the traffic is horrendous, you know, and I'm sure this is the same globally. Is the concentration of traffic and the pollution that sends. And I talk about this I touch on this within my presentation, and I think what we can all see. And there's an Indian town that demonstrates this for the first time in 30 years. The occupants of the town, the citizens, can see the Himalayas on the horizon for the first time in some people's living memory. And I think we're all really enjoying the cleaner air, the slower pace of life, and there's more wildlife in my garden. I'm spending more time with my family. It's not affecting terribly my work output or what I'm doing. I'm a person that I gave up my car on Earth Day last year, and I challenged myself, can I live without a car? Because under the Paris Agreement, we all know that we need to start using more sustainable modes of transport. So at my age, I need to keep fit. I'm not one to go to the gym. So I've already started this habit of, I cycle everywhere now. I feel much healthier for it. And this has just been an amazing experience. Of course, not for the tragic way that it's affected large swathes of the population, but I mean in terms of starting to condition us and form new habits, I'd like to see that these benefits do continue post-pandemic, and I don't think there is a normal to go back to, because normal wasn't working, and I think to go back to normal is just that. I think it would be a step backwards. Going back to normal would be backwards. I think we need to take this opportunity and move forward and embrace the change. I don't know whether, how successful it will be, but listening to Lewis, it sounds like this type of thinking is already in the pipeline, and this could just be the catalyst that propels that forward.
Yes, that's the new normal. The new normal.
The new normal.
The new normal. Yeah.
Which was the title of my presentation.
Yes, the new normal. Yeah.
The new normal.
Yes, I would like to thank everyone. Would you like to say something, Lewis?
Yeah. In addition to what Richard has said, do recall in my, I'm the head of department where I work, my department. So we try to introduce a lot of online courses, and we try to train the lecturers online teaching. And there was massive resistance, and in fact, it failed. But now, within hours of the announcement of the closure of the universities, everyone learned how to do it. We've been actually learned online how to deliver online lectures, and it's been working very, very effectively and efficient, and it's been very fantastic. New normal.
Yes, exactly. It saves a lot of fuel efficiency.
Yes.
I hope so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I would now like to thank everyone for coming up tonight and speaking on the topics, and now also joining us for the Q&A session. Thank you so much, Richard. Thank you so much, Lewis. Thank you so much, Sohan. Thank you so much, Ravindra sir. I would also like to thank our course associates, University of Wolverhampton, Once Upon a Tree, Shilpa-Sagar Academy, EVS Inc., Anglia Ruskin University, and Bharatiya Vidyapit College of Architecture, Navi Mumbai. That would be all for today. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Good to meet you all.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. It was a really lovely experience hosting you guys. Thank you.